I am Ted Bundy and I murdered over 30 women. I bet you are wondering why. At the University of Washington, I met and started dating my first girlfriend, Diane Edwards. She was upper class, had a nice car, and had a great family. Things I would like to had but didn't. Our relationship brought out a lot of my own insecurities. I didn't have enough money to take her out as she expected, and I generally felt like she was a bit out of my league. When she eventually ended things, I had a desire to get some sort of revenge on her. Almost all of my victims resembled her. She was white and slim, with long, dark hair. I was also addicted to violent porn, which eventually made me want to act out my fantasies. I was chasing a high I would never catch. One of the tactics I used to get them close to my car was to wear a fake cast and ask them to help me carry something. As they did, I would hit them until they were unconscious, bind, rape, and then kill them before dumping their body in a remote place in the woods. I would often spend the night with the corpses of those I had killed and would return again and again to have sex with their dead bodies. I only stopped when they were too decomposed or had been eaten by animals. I also used to pose the victims in styles I had seen in porn when I was a child and take Polaroid snaps so I could look at them again and again. I would also eat parts of their bodies so I could possess them and they would become part of me. On June 25, 1979, I went on trial in Florida for the murders of the sorority women. The trial was televised, and I played up to the media by occasionally acting as my own attorney. Eventually, I was found guilty on both murder charges and received 2 death sentences, which meant I would face the electric chair. Next, on January 7, 1980, I stood trial for killing Kimberly Leach. This time, I allowed my attorneys to represent me. Given the overwhelming evidence against me, we decided to pursue an insanity plea as the only possible defense. During this trial, my behavior was quite different from the previous one. I displayed fits of anger, slouched in my chair, and sometimes replaced my collegial look with a haunting glare. Ultimately, I was found guilty again and received a 3rd death sentence. During the sentencing phase, I surprised everyone by calling Carol Boone as a character witness and marrying her while she was on the witness stand. Boone believed in my innocence at the time. Later, she gave birth to our child, a little girl whom I adored. However, Boone eventually divorced me after realizing my guilt in the horrific crimes I had been charged with. Despite numerous appeals, my last day of execution came on January 17, 1989. Just before being put to death, I provided Washington State Attorney General's chief investigator, Dr. Bob Keppel, with details about more than 50 women I had murdered. I also confessed to keeping the heads of some of my victims at my home and engaging in necrophilia with some of them. In my final interview, I blamed my exposure to pornography during my formative years as the catalyst behind my murderous obsessions. Many of those directly involved with my case believed that I had killed at least 100 women. The day of my electrocution arrived as scheduled, accompanied by a carnival-like atmosphere outside the prison. It was reported that I spent the night crying and praying. When I was led into the death chamber, my face was sullen and gray, devoid of any hint of the old charismatic Bundy. As I was moved into the death chamber, my eyes scanned the faces of the 42 witnesses present. Once strapped into the electric chair, I began mumbling. Superintendent Tom Barton asked if I had any last words, and my voice broke as I said, "Jim and Fred, I'd like you to give my love to my family and friends." Jim Coleman, one of my lawyers, nodded, as did Fred Lawrence, the Methodist minister who had prayed with me throughout the night. As I bowed my head, I prepared myself for the electrocution. The volts surged through my body, causing my hands and body to tighten, and smoke could be seen coming from my right leg. Then the machine turned off, and a doctor checked me one last time. On January 24, 1989, I, Theodore Bundy, one of the most notorious killers of all time, died at 7:16 a.m. outside the prison. Crowds cheered, "Burn, Bundy, burn."